As if.
All right. So can I go ahead and do the introductions and so on?
Yes.
You're ready to go. Welcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So welcome, students. We are here. Our presenter is in the room, and as you heard, she is ready to go. And so just before I move ahead, I'm going to have a prayer. Yes? Father, we want to ask you in a special way to bless Miss Joseph as she does her presentation. May everything be understood. May the key important points be received. And may we embrace them as we move along on our business journey, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So we're going to jump right in because we have until just about 6:45. We are supposed to end at 6:45 so that we can start the next presentation. The presenter this evening is Miss Cavell Joseph St. Omer. And she is a globally recognized human resource executive with 20+ years of experience working effectively in her field. Her passion is providing human resource solutions by helping them build their HR infrastructure through technology, compliance, and people. She is a prolific speaker at various fora in Trinidad, in the Caribbean, in the US, in India, and many other countries. She is a member of the board of directors of the National Training Agency, and she's presently the public relations officer at Arthur Lockjack School of Graduate Business. Alumni Association, of course, the alumni board. She was elected president of the Human Resource Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago since September 2021. And her impressive CV includes valuable and commendable service to a long list of government and NGOs, too many to mention. And she continues to provide expertise service, and she has received numerous awards. Her expertise is supported by her professional qualifications. She holds a Master's of Business Administration with distinction, specializing in human resource management from the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business. She has a bachelor's degree in economics and law, that's a double major, a diploma in labor laws, and she has earned her international certificate with the Society for Human Resource Management. And she's also a SHRM Senior Certified Professional, well qualified and competent to do our presentation this evening. And the topic is preparation for the world of work. I'm going to hand you over now to Ms. Cavell Joseph Omer. She will indicate if she would take questions during her presentation, or if you would like them at the end, we can do that. So you let me know exactly how you would like, and I'll take the lead from you. Over to you now, Cavell.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ms. Phillips, for that introduction. And hello, ladies and gents on the call. So much to adjust to Zoom and talking to an audience that I cannot actually see and interact with the way that I would usually do. So in accordance with the subject that I was asked to speak a little bit on, I will share with you, putting it, of course, into context of what's happening with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we all know that the pandemic has disrupted labor markets globally since 2020. The short-term consequences of this, of course, were sudden and often severe. We've experienced it right here, where persons were furloughed, there were lost jobs, and rapidly had to adjust to new working conditions, working from home as offices were initially closed. Many other workers were deemed essential, and they continue to work in the hospitals, in supermarkets, picking up our garbage to the garbage trucks, in warehousing, and they worked under the new protocols to reduce the spread of the virus. But before COVID-19, the largest disruption to work, of course, was new technology, the growing trade as well, and trade links globally as well. But COVID-19 has, for the first time, elevated the importance of the physical dimensions of work. And we'd see that from all the changes businesses had to make during the pandemic in terms of ensuring that there was physical distance within the workspace, ensuring that workers were in close proximity to each other and the customers as well, and ensuring that interpersonal interactions on site and outdoor, that we had to reduce those interactions. So that was some of the changes in the world of work. So the short-term potential for this now and these disruptions, naturally, the virus severely interrupted persons working in the medical care, personal care, who were in online and on-site customer service-oriented environments, persons involved in leisure and travel as well too. These were the sectors that were disrupted. In the longer term now, we are seeing a different kind of effect as it relates to COVID. The work arena, of course, is shifting. We have learned a lot more about the virus, and it means, therefore, that environments has shifted to somewhat, what I would say, live with the coronavirus. So we have to now live with it. So as a consequence of that, we saw the evolution of new technology to support it. We see now that travel has returned and leisure to some effect has returned. And there's customer-facing workers still in hotels and restaurants and airports, as well as the entertainment sectors, which we have experienced here in Trinidad and Tobago, just the same with the reopening of the economy, right? So what we're seeing now is less crowds, and it's forcing these sectors now to reinvent itself in terms of how services are delivered. So in the longer term, the shift that we were looking at in terms of remote work and what it meant for corporate type environments versus the services sector as it relates to leisure and travel and healthcare and all of that, we see now an adjustment around it in terms of changing workflows, assessing risk, and these jobs still continue to be essential, but how they're treated and how they are compensated and how they're rewarded is a little bit different, right? So for computer-based office work, which includes offices of all sizes, we're seeing a shift happening there as well. A number of businesses are saying today, hear what? We can afford to have our staff work remotely, and persons who in the auditing field, for example, auditors have been doing this, recognizing that the staff could work fully and functionally at home and interact with the clients when necessary. But all audit reports, all of that could be done, and we could host meetings virtually. And virtual meetings are here to stay. That's just the reality as well. And we will talk about how that has consequences for travel and traveling overseas for meetings and all of that as well. So we see, therefore, some businesses can easily switch, and your job can now be done remotely. For those of you who may be studying finance and accounting, be seeking to get into the audit world, as an example, we see that shift working well there. But for others, like in the services sector, we see the return, but the return based on risk being assessed and conditions for how physical layout of restaurants, of cinemas, in terms of seating, a whole host of changes have occurred. So outdoor activities have shifted. When we look at outdoor production and maintenance and construction sites and farms and residential and commercial grounds and other outdoor spaces like sporting arena, we see COVID had little impact here as it relates to the actual workflow. But what it did is reduce the amount of people gathering and few interactions taking place outdoors. But we are slowly returning to what we deem to be normal as in terms of conditions that were existing prior to COVID. So in terms of you, and for those of you who are studying at the university, what does it mean in terms of future work opportunities for you and the trajectory of most of the careers right now, and what it means for the labor market in particular, post-pandemic? Although the post seems to be a lot longer than we anticipated as well too. We are actually entering in year 3, right? So remote work and virtual meetings are likely to continue. As I said, it wouldn't be as intense as it was before, but it will continue because businesses have seen the benefit of it, especially as it relates to reducing travel, etc., right? So perhaps the most obvious impact of COVID-19 on the labor force will be the dramatic increase in employees working remotely. And for us here locally in Trinidad and Tobago, we know that some businesses are still fighting to hold on to the traditional world of work and the traditional way of doing business, especially those in the public sector as well, as opposed to private sector. So to determine how extensive remote work might persist after the pandemic, we'll have to examine it a little bit closely and look at the public sector versus the private sector to see the real impact and the real difference, right? But that is something you have to adjust to in terms of the future, getting used to now remote working. What does that mean for you in terms of interviews, in terms of negotiating your first paycheck, for those of you who haven't entered the world of work just yet? And a lot of this, in terms of how these negotiations and interviews are being done now, is now all being done online as well. What it means for brainstorming and for employee engagement or a performance management as well too. These activities are being done remotely, but it's creating a disconnect between the employee and the workspace, especially if managers do not have the skill sets to manage it effectively as well. COVID-19 may also propel the fast adoption of automation and artificial intelligence into the workspace as well. And we've seen it in some countries where deliveries like Amazon and a few companies, they redesign work processes to reduce the number of routine deliveries and all of that. And they embrace technology to do that. In the Middle East, we saw intelligence, artificial intelligence and automation of these services as well in terms of warehousing, grocery stores, call centers, right? And a lot of companies switch from having receptionists in-house to using automated services as well. Manufacturing plans to reduce the workplace density and to cope with surges in demand as well. So technology was embraced. What has ultimately occurred as a consequence of that is a number of organizations have re-examined their staffing structure, right? And realized that a lot of the work could be done, and it could be done with fewer people, right? So long before COVID, we knew that there was an upended effect in terms of daily routines as it relates to our work lives. But the pandemic, with its arrival, it kind of accelerated some of these things. A lot of companies like Amazon, for example, were playing around with it before, but they accelerate the introduction of the technology into the workspace. So as a student today, these are some of the new technologies that I would study because it's the future of work, right? AI and automation. Then the concept of the traditional 9-to-5 employment and what that means for shaking up workspace and the rise of the gig economy. We saw it right here. We saw that when persons lost their jobs, a number of people entered into the food and beverage industry and was doing home deliveries and all of that. So we know the gig economy is larger now as a consequence. And for those who may have returned to traditional work environments, they still do it at the side on a weekend, on evenings, they still participate in the gig economy. So that has risen, and traditional 9-to-5 jobs are now being questioned. And we see in the United States now, the whole concept of the Great Resignation, or the Big Quit as we call it, where a number of people have opted just not to return to work altogether because they felt the employers were not treating them with respect. There's not enough support systems for them, especially for those with children, right? They weren't compensated enough for the adjustment and the risk that they faced in the workspace. And then the social structure of the United States is a little bit different to us here in Trinidad and Tobago, where they can actually work for 2 years, be unemployed for 2 years, and be paid by the government of the United States as well. So the social structure is in place in the United States that will allow for that kind of decision making. But amidst all the pandemic and the tumult, women were most affected and left with the most set of challenges because of the family duties, balancing that along with work responsibilities. We all know that schools were closed, daycare services were closed, right? And then schools went and switched to online learning. So what did that mean, especially for the women, when socially we have trained and raised our boys and girls with societal assignments of roles and responsibilities as it relates to family duty and family care and elderly care in some instances. It meant that for some of them, there were particularly unique challenges as it related to the world of work. So the impact now in terms of that and women returning to work now is still a bit of a challenge in terms of adjusting, recognizing that the support systems that existed for them in terms of school and daycare, although it's returning, there's still this fear and still, what should I say, besides fear. But in terms of even teachers returning as well, there's a lot of challenges around that because of the psychological trauma that everyone experienced over the last 2 years. So there's a big shift that occurred that really impacted women differently to men. We saw also the services and care economy growing during this time, especially as it relates, as I said, to the elderly care and the services, the support services that exist around that. And these are jobs that are usually undervalued, as we know. And we hope that at some point in time, the value of these jobs will be re-examined, it will be examined, right? But for now, they continue to be essential, but yet undervalued. But we are seeing a growth in those job sectors in terms of job opportunities for those responsible for caring for the elderly and in working in the medical services as well too, right? Like nursing homes and all of that as well, right? So we see COVID has shown us how important these essential workers are to the stability of life. However, they're still the veer towards technology and jobs associated with logistics and remote work, and the reward and the dignity and the respect that these workers in the services and care economy should have, they haven't yet received it. So we're hoping for some kind of turnaround to happen. We see the nurses complaining about it all the time, right? We see nurses, the Nursing Association on television complaining about not having proper terms and conditions or contractual arrangements in place. So it is hope, because we all clapped and we all recognize how essential they were, but in terms of how we treat with them, that nothing much has changed as a result of that. So the services are still essential. I often tell my little cousins, and they get into jobs like that in the healthcare services, because we see what is actually important in life is COVID has shown us really we have to focus on our health, right? So where the jobs are, what you will want to know now in terms of what's going on here. Having the knowledge about the shifts that has taken place in the labor market, what does that mean to you as a student in making an informed decision about your career path and what you should actually pursue? So as I've said, the healthcare and community services is an area that is fastly growing, right? And at least that's what world market trends are showing. And it's still a necessity right here domestically as well. So that's one area. Aged care as well too, in terms of how we deal with an aging population. Our statistics have shown us that we have an aged population in Trinidad and Tobago. When you look at the NIS reports, the reports indicate that in fact, because people are living longer and we don't have enough persons contributing to the fund, that there are serious consequences for the fund and for those of us who may retire in the next 15 to 20 years in terms of what might be available in the fund. So we know that caring for the aged person and careers around that, whether it's administrative careers, whether it's working as a healthcare provider directly as part of the healthcare system, but we know that sector will continue to grow because of what the statistics show us about our population. In terms of accommodation and food services, again, tourism dollars are spent, and they're spent domestically. We have seen now an appreciation by our citizens for domestic tourism. We've seen a lot of travel between the both islands. It was always there, the movement of people from Trinidad to Tobago. But now, because airports were closed and there were so many restrictions, I think we saw an appreciation for domestic tourism. And as a consequence of that, we've seen a lot of local tourism companies doing road trips and all of that and marketing it for locals to get on board with local tourism. So tourism dollars, although it's being generated domestically, it is still creating jobs and opportunities, and there's a market for it as well too. And centered around that is, of course, accommodation and food services as well. So for some of us who may choose to go down to Mayaro or go to the Northeast Coast or right across to Tobago, we see that there will be a need for accommodation and for food services around that. So that is a potential in terms of a career. But of course, there is the scientific, the technological services that is required and the professional services, right? And we're seeing that there's a shortage of some of these services. Although it would appear that we have enough engineers and we have enough accountants and lawyers and all of that. But in terms of the technology now, and specific types of engineering as well too, as opposed to those related to the construction sector, right? There's a shortage of those skill sets. And it's an area that is necessary to drive the economy going forward that is not being thoroughly explored and promoted as part of the curriculum in some of our universities as well too. We all focus on COVID for the last 2 years and going into the third year, but it does not dismiss the issues around climate change, which is actually a real challenge for us, especially for us in the Caribbean and part of the smaller islands, the island system as well, right? Because we're seeing sea levels rising. We are seeing the difference in the patterns for climate change and the weather conditions. So it means in terms of the green economy now, there's a lot of potential for future careers in terms of how do we create a sustainable world going forward. And careers to pursue in terms of green engineering in particular, and the blue economy. A lot of the world's economic transactions occur across the ocean, right? International trade cannot happen without the ocean. And 80% of it happens across the ocean. It's a $1 trillion industry. So the blue economy and how we can now manage jobs and opportunities in that sector, in that area, is also critical and evolving as well too. We are in the Caribbean, and I think it's surprising to me that we have not promoted this. We have not really focused on it as we should have, right? But it's an area that I would encourage any student right now to look at careers in those sectors as well too, because that's the future. Cybersecurity, we are being asked now to do a lot of things online. We have seen right through COVID, attacks on systems. We saw it in the US with the oil issue, right? And the interference with the cyber attacks and what it caused as well. We saw Trojan attacks and the increase in that. And we saw one of the biggest threats of terrorism for Australia being a cyber attack. So cybersecurity and how we deal with that, especially as we go digital, is also a key area for in terms of an area for you to pursue as a career. Education and training. We will always need educators and trainers, no matter what, because we need someone to prepare the next generation of workers. It may mean, however, that curriculums and how we prepare our educators and the way we prepare for new ways of learning as well, so that will have to shift to embrace the technology. But we will always have a need for teachers and educators and trainers. Construction will not go away, right? That is the reality. And construction is tied to housing as well, and how we deal with housing and new housing infrastructure and all of that. So the construction sector is one where there will always be opportunities for new roadways, for housing as well, as I said earlier. So developing skills that are necessary, but doing it in alignment with the green economy is what is critical now, right? In terms of building infrastructure that is environmentally friendly as well. Some of the skills, and this is another area now that I have to focus on, the skills that will be in demand in the future as well. Along with practical skills, there's also a need for soft skills to be developed, and it has long been overlooked, and it's something that we will need to focus on what employers are now screening candidates for. And it's not for you to come and say, oh, I'm a good communicator, I'm great at teamwork, I have good problem solving skills, I am resilient, I have the ability to work and to multitask and to work effectively online. It's not enough for you to say that, but you have to demonstrate it. And there are now tools available to certify persons in soft skills. That didn't exist before, but it exists now. And we see now more than ever is the soft skills that are actually necessary and the skills that you have to develop in order to prepare for the future of work, right? So you may be technically sound, a good engineer, a good attorney, a good accountant, but you lack the soft skills, which is absolutely critical, especially in a work environment, how we stay connected, how we work as a team in a virtual space as well too. We also have to look at how technology will impact jobs in the future as well. The pandemic has meant that we all have had to embrace emerging technology, just like how we had to embrace Zoom, for example. Zoom wasn't a big thing before the pandemic. Zoom now, everybody had to get on board utilizing Zoom, right? So technology in terms of how we embrace it for our jobs and how we learn it as well too, because traditional skills are shifting. It is shifting now to these new skills as well. So when I say technology, I don't only mean the computer, I mean drone technology, right? And drone technology is connected to the blue and green economies as well as traditional economies. We're talking about virtual reality, and we are seeing now surgeons are using virtual reality to practice their surgeries. We see NASA engineers using it to fix aircrafts and spacecrafts. So virtual technology, virtual reality, sorry, my apologies, also has to be a form of technology that you must now embrace, as well as augmented reality. During COVID, we saw the metaverse being introduced, and we see Barbados was first on board to saying that they are going to have an embassy in the metaverse as well. So we have to get accustomed to these new forms of technology and practice using them, as well as preparing for the world of work as we embrace these new types of technology as well. And finally, in terms of recruitment and how recruitment will shift, as I was saying earlier, candidates now are required to get accustomed to doing interviews online rather than face-to-face via telephone or video interview. It means that you have to sell a personality virtually. You have to connect with the interviewers while not being in the same space with them. You have to dress the part, look the part, be on time just the same way as if it were a face-to-face interview as well. So it doesn't mean because it's an online video interview that you wouldn't dress appropriately for it. And I could say this much to you. I had the experience during COVID interviewing someone via video, and they were in pajamas because they expected to do the interview without camera. And we insisted that we had to see who we were speaking with. And when they put on the camera, the person was in the bedroom with pajamas on. Needless to say, that candidate was not successful. Please don't let that be your story as well. Prepare for video interviews just the same as in-person videos. It may seem daunting to do it because it's very different, just like how I'm speaking to you now and I can't see faces and I can't get a reaction and feed off the energy in the room. But it's something that we have to get used to and be comfortable with and be confident with using it as well. The same with telephone interviews, which is, again, replacing some of the traditional ways that we've done. And the thing is, and the challenge with this for practitioners like myself, is that we don't get to see body language, we don't get to see faces, we don't get to connect, get that eye connect, right? But we could still get a sense of who you are just by having a conversation with you over the phone. So please learn to ace these things as well, just the same way, and practice. So even if it means recording yourself, seeing how you look, how you perform, or they might be comfortable on camera, it's best that you practice, right? And eliminate some of the nerves that goes along with it. And of course, as I said earlier, dress appropriately despite being at home, because it is still an interview. Make sure your environment is one that if necessary, there's no clutter, the room is clean and it's quiet and you could focus, right? So it's important to recognize this and recognize the shift that is happening as it relates to that as you prepare to enter the world of work. So this is what I wanted to share with you in terms of some of the findings thus far. As for my personal journey, I was asked to share a little bit about myself. I'm an HR practitioner, as I shared earlier, over 20 years in the industry, but I did not start off as an HR practitioner. I say this to you because you may be studying something now, and then you may very well want to change as you go along. So I started off doing law. I wanted to be a lawyer at first, so I was pursuing law. And then it's through my involvement with family business, coming home and working during holidays and all of that, I eventually fell in love with HR because I was asked or charged with the responsibility of setting up the HR department for my family business. And as a consequence of that, I changed my whole career choice, and I did my master's and specialized in HR, and the rest of it is history. But it was not a career that I first wanted to pursue. The good thing is with my background and an understanding of the law, it has made me a better practitioner. The same way that I did economics as well too. So I have an appreciation for numbers because they say HR practitioners are not good with numbers, right? So I did economics and law as a first degree. So I said this to you that you may be pursuing a degree now and you're still not certain about what you want to do in the future. It's okay, that is fine. It's important for you to get some work experience along the way that will help you now navigate the world of work and determine exactly where your passion lies. And in terms of selecting a postgraduate study or some form of postgraduate study, through the work experiences that you have, it may help you select something that you might be passionate about as well too. But whatever you choose, whatever field you enter, make sure that it's something that you actually enjoy doing. Like I love what I do. I love my job. I'm passionate about HR, about people development, and about just seeing people grow and flourish and develop. And every organization that I've been a part of, I've left my team much better than I met them. And I feel proud about that as well. And I still stay in communication with them. They still message me and they keep me abreast of their progress. And that's what I enjoy most about what I do. Seeing the changes that you can actually make in people's life and the difference it can make in organizations, right? And the impact you can have as well too. So that being said, to you studying, even if you're unclear about what you want to pursue, that's okay. In time, you will come into your own being, but make sure you're doing something that you actually love. And if you get up and you feel excited to do every single day, right? But be acutely aware of where the future world of work is heading as well too. Because the careers of today wouldn't be the essential careers of tomorrow. That is the reality. The world is changing and we need to change along with it as well too. So thank you very much. I hope that I've made some sense, right? And I hope you appreciated what I had to say.
Thank you for the valuable insights. Covell, you made more than sense. If you check the chat, you will see the commendations that are being submitted. Very good. Thank you. Well received and so on. And we will open for questions. Oh, excellent presentation. Thank you. They're really, really commending you for your valuable insights. And we'll open for questions. Persons, you can use the Q&A. We'll be happy to have questions. And Covell will be happy to answer them. And while they're coming, you can also raise your hands if you would like to speak with our presenter. So very well articulated. I saw a hand up. I'm not sure if this person wants to ask a question. The person is Brittany Rajkumar. Brittany, would you like to ask a question? Brittany?
No, miss. It was by mistake.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay, it was an error. All right. So while they are processing and they're giving you all the commendations in the chat, I was thinking that you mentioned a whole list of possible jobs of the future, or the relevant ones, and so on, and those that probably some of them can easily transition to online and some or remote. The remote option, and some of them may not be. But what I noted, whether in technology, the drone technology, nursing, the green economy, local tourism, cybersecurity, the advantage that we have as business students studying business is that all of these can translate into a business. So once we lay that foundation in terms of business studies, then you can use it to launch forward in whatever sphere you select. I'm seeing the questions coming now. So there we go. As an HR professional, how do you think digitalization would affect HR in organizations? That's the first question. How do you think digitalization would affect HR in organizations?
Okay. So of course, HR is responsible for the full, if you had to look at supply chain, the full supply chain of an employee's life, the full life cycle of an employee in an organization, right? So from the point of entry, so from advertising, for example, technology and digitization can assist with a lot of jobs being advertised online. There's artificial intelligence that can now allow for sifting of applications. When we post a job in my organization, we receive hundreds of applications. As a practitioner now, having to go through all of that, artificial intelligence allows you to sift the candidates and shortlist the candidates for you by inputting keywords that you're looking for in a resume for a particular job, key indicators, right? So there's that element of it. In terms of recruitment and selection, again, I will say, in terms of the technology that we use for interviews and all of that now, that is how it will assist and it impacts the will of work. And practitioners now have to retool and embrace technology in the workspace as well to become more efficient and effective in delivering HR services. As it relates now to when you're hired and you're on the job and you're being onboarded, technology is used to welcome you into the workspace, to introduce you to policies and procedures of the organization as well. Then technology also impacts work processes. As we embrace digitization of the workspaces and workflows, it means retraining and retooling the workforce to understand the new technology and to use it effectively and efficiently in your respective organizations. So workflow, process mapping, all those things will change. It makes the job more effective and efficient. It reduces costs at the end because introducing technology in the beginning is an expensive exercise, but over time, the rates of returns on it, it's proven that it's actually, it's effective in reducing the expenditure for organizations as well, right? So it's a matter of training and retooling the workforce now and re-examining workflows. So it means job descriptions and all these different things will have to be updated as you introduce new technology. So a long time when you needed a typist, for example, something like a typist, and you're typing on a typewriter or a stenographer, right? Those are old careers, old jobs. With the introduction of computers, that changed altogether. And you had to retool the same typist and all of that to now utilize a computer. It's the same thing with the technology that I'm talking about that we're going to now see in the future as well. So it means retooling your workforce to utilize the said technology as well. So as a practitioner, I could see it being very effective. It allows for remote working as well with digital signatures, VPN access into the computer system, the servers, right, to access data and all of that. But there's also the downside as it relates to privacy and confidentiality issues. Employees who are now working remotely and having meetings and you never know if they're family members right by sitting next to you while you're having a meeting discussing the company's affairs and businesses. All these are the things you have to factor in as well. Mm-hmm. Right? But yes, it does have an impact.
and the HR professional has a lot to contribute to all of that. I'm seeing a whole lot of questions coming in, but we have a few minutes for this session that starts at 7. But there was one question that came in. Another one I want to mention. My son, when he started working for an organization, after a few months, he said, look, mommy, I want to work on my own. Someone wants to know, do you think, let me get the question. She wants to know if working for yourself as opposed to working in a company would be more beneficial in terms of gaining the experience that you need.
Okay.
Working for yourself as opposed to working in a company.
Well, that's a very trick. It's not a black and white question that was asked, right? Of course, working for yourself, there are certain skill sets that you develop naturally as a consequence of that. The entrepreneurial skill sets, the perseverance that goes along with it, because people think that having a business is something that, that is easy, that you're making a lot of money, that you'll be wealthy, but they don't see the hours and the hard work that is required for it, and the long hours. The first 5 years of any business are the toughest years, the first 5 years, right? Everything has to be reinvested for the growth of that business. It also means you have a responsibility for employees, for staff, to the government in terms of taxation and all of that. So naturally, you will get certain skill sets that are necessary, and it will make you more resilient, tougher and more resilient. Working for an employer now as an employee, there's a different set of skill sets that are required there as well, especially as it relates to even negotiating, being more accommodating and compromising, because you now have to comply with the policies of another organization. It's not your own, right? You don't set those terms, you don't set conditions. You have to work in accordance with terms and conditions set by the employer. But you learn how to work collaboratively, work as a team, right? Focus on the essential vision and mission of that organization as well too. So there are skill sets that are built there. Plus you get to interact with other people in different departments, with finance, with legal, with corporate communications. And as a result of that, you develop other skills that are necessary for your future as well too, because you can learn a lot along the way.
Mm-hmm. So one could feed the other. One could feed into the other, and depending on what you're doing. Yes. All right.
Yes, correct.
One other. We only have time for one more. Do you think that cost reductions has affected the HR department? That's another question from student.
Well, the thing is, what COVID has done, as I said earlier, it has shown management or business owners how to do a lot more with less, right? So for some persons who may have opted, for example, to not get vaccinated for their personal choice, who may have opted to resign, companies are now utilizing technologies and coming up with new ways of doing business that has resulted in a reduction in the workforce. So HR has to assist with that by showing how the business could be done with less, and how we are all required to do a little bit more during this time, because we also have to survive this. We know that it's a global recession. We know that commodity prices are rising as well too. So there's a global issue at hand here. So HR now has to provide the guidance to organizations to show them how more could be achieved using either technology and less human resources as well, or to use your resources differently as well. Retool and upskill your workforce for the new set of skills that are required to drive the business going forward as well too.
Okay, I'll need some advice, Miss Legal. Are you there? If you can let us know, do we have a few more minutes to answer the other three questions, or how could you guide us, please?
Most certainly, if Mrs. Joseph will be willing to take the questions, we would. The next presenter is listening to this session, so he's already in and listening, so he's happy to give a few more minutes. So if Mrs. Joseph is okay, we'll be happy for her to take the question.
Are you? All right, I saw a big smile, so I'm happy. All right, let's go. One person, and maybe we could try to be tight here. I want to get into languages. Do you think there would continue to be a demand for translators, interpreters, and so on? That's one of the ones that, in terms of technology.
But what I will say to that is this. For too long, we in the English-speaking world did not embrace other languages. Now we're seeing with all the migration issues, whether it's forced or voluntarily, migration has resulted in us needing, it's now a necessity for us to understand other languages and to learn other languages. For a long time, the English-speaking world, because of economics, right? The United States and England, for economic reasons, felt the rest of the world should just learn English, and that's the end of that. But we're seeing now more than ever the critical importance to understand and to learn, at least to be bilingual. Let me put it that way. It's essential, and it's in fact an advantage to you. It's a competitive advantage to you if you are bilingual as well, because a lot of businesses are growing their businesses by doing businesses in other parts of the world, and it's not necessarily English speaking.
That's right. It's a global community.
Yes.
Then there's another one about shedding light on experiences that were not part of your career path and how it brought value to you in your chosen field.
Well, I could sit and talk about that for hours and hours and hours because I say to students all the time, you see, volunteerism is one of the key ways you could gain experience and knowledge, build a network that will be invaluable to your job. A lot of the people that I knew and I met along the way and who will do a reference to me at any point in time is through volunteerism. I've served on boards for various NGOs. I've developed skill sets like fundraising. I tell people I'm so good at begging now. It's amazing. Like, I don't beg for myself, don't get me wrong. But I could beg for an organization really good because it's a skill that I developed over time as well too. So you get networked. You learn, like for me, I was the secretary on the board of an NGO. So I learned all the legal requirements now, filing annual returns, doing AGMs, doing minutes, etc. So you learn invaluable skill sets that I've used now in the world of work as a result of that as well. So that is one way. Through sports and all of that too is another way as well. I used to play football. I may not look it. I played netball as well too, right? I was very much involved in sporting activities. And again, key skills are learned through that avenue as well. So don't discount those experiences and how it can impact your career going forward.
Excellent. I see another one. Somebody is doing an undergrad degree in hospitality and tourism and want to know if they could transition to a master's in HR. If that's possible. Is that possible?
Most definitely. And let me tell you something. Every job has a people element to it. And I keep advocating, we are all HR managers because you're managing people, you're working with people. And I think if most managers understood HR a little bit better, it will make them more effective at their jobs. So you don't have to be the HR manager is not the only person who should understand how to deal and treat with people issues. Every manager should. So even if you're in the hospitality business, understanding human nature, how to deal with the human resources of an organization, especially in the services sector, is critical. So of course you can. You're going to be an HR manager anyway because you're the managing staff. If you're in a hotel, if you're in a restaurant, it's all people at the end of the day. So having those skills are good. They actually help solidify or to back up. I would say everybody should understand HR.
Great note to end on, because the last question speaks about the most important resource that is necessary for someone who wants to take on a managerial role.
So the most important resource in any organization is the people. Exactly. And for a long time, in terms of the financial sector now, you've always seen everything associated with staff being an expense. And that is why when organizations have to trim and cut, they always look to the staff because it's the largest expense on the book. Whether it's salary, whether it's any kind of benefits associated with the staff, the first thing they look at is cutting staff, not understanding that's where competitive advantage lie. We have access to all the resources now. People can pick up and operate all over the globe and access the same resources. What makes the difference is the talent in the organization, the years of experience walking through those hallways. In my organization, there's thousands and thousands of years of experience if you tallied up everyone and what they bring to the table, right? So you need to treat those resources differently and find a way to account for it financially differently. Because it's only when you're selling a business, you see the value, that thing called goodwill, which is all the branding, that, the brand strength and the brand identity and all of that. And who creates that kind of value is the workers at the end of the day. That is the reality through good customer service, through manufacturing good products and good services as well. They are the ones creating that value that you only see at the point in time when you're ready to sell. You don't get to see it any other way, right? And something needs to me to change about that. Find a way in accounting to show the true value of your workforce instead of always seeing it as an expense and something you can just snip and chop and cut and do what you want with. A business after close is the people that suffer, always the same people that generated the wealth over the years for it. And when things turn and go awry because of management decisions most of the time, it's the people that now suffer as a result of it. So we have to find a way to do things differently. That is what I will say to that question.
Excellent. Students, that was Cavell Joseph Sintoma laying out a case for us to understand and embrace the key tenets of human resource management, helping us to understand what jobs are relevant, where we need to go, helping us to chart a direction in terms of your future. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your insights. I see Ms. Ligor raising her hands. She's going to probably have the final say, and then we will go from there. Go ahead, Ms. Ligor.
Certainly indeed, certainly indeed. Thank you so very much, Cavell, for being here. We apologize again for the initial startup, but you showed us like a true HR professional that nothing stops us. We cannot be defeated, nothing.
Nothing.
Indeed, and I just wanted to say one more thing before you go. Can you just stress to the students a little bit about the networking and the role of HERMAT and then how they can probably be a part of it? Can you just stress that before you go? And thank you so much again.
You're welcome.
For with us this evening. I'll be in touch with you, but thank you for the insightfulness this afternoon. So if you can tell us about that, and then I'll hand it back over to Ms. Phillips, who is our host for this evening.
Sure. Well, you cannot discount the importance of a good networker. Networking is critical to success. And I always say the men have it better. I'll bring it down to a gender thing now. Men have it better. They know how to do it a lot better than women, because I guess history, having the time, and again, the societal rules. So women always focus on rushing home after work to see about children and to deal with all the after school activities, whether who's playing sports at the end of the day, who have to learn a musical instrument, homework, etc. But networking opens avenues for you that if you didn't do it, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't have access to information. You wouldn't know business deals that are happening, because most business decisions are not happening in the office. Contrary to popular belief, people don't come to sit down around a table in an office and make big decisions about spending. It's on the golf course, it's in a rum shop, or it's in a bar. They sit down, they come up with an idea, and then they say, well, okay, John went CIC, he's a host of the CIC boys, so he will get it. The institutions are the same way, no. The universities are the same way as well. No offense, I don't know if that is the case here. But if you look at UWI and all the others, and you look at the schools and the colleges the professors went to, you will see it's a network, because they all look out for each other, right? That opportunity arise, you call your CIC partner, or you send, the women are a little different, to be honest. They don't look out in the same way as the men do. But for me, I draw from my network. I really do. So if I know you are the best at something, I am calling you up for an opportunity that the others wouldn't be, they wouldn't even be aware of. That is the reality, a lot of information that is missing from, you hear a big project, you see it go up, and you want to know, well, when that happened, when that was announced, when that person got that job. You wouldn't know because it happened within a network. So learn to network, learn not just to rush as things reopen. Don't just leave your job and rush home at the end of an evening, but sometimes stay back, have a drink, learn to network within your organization as well. Learn the key decision makers and the influencers in the organization, and get the face time with them, because another reason why some people get promoted versus others is because they're more visible in the organization, right? So if every sports day you're not around corporate dinners and events you don't attend, right? You are seen as someone who is not for the company. So if you're turning up events and you're giving the face time to your leaders, you're volunteering to serve on committees in your organization, you're doing extra, people see it, become more visible, so that when an opportunity arises, you don't have to compete in the same way. You have an inroad. So when you sit down before the decision makers, even if they decide to interview, they already know in their head who they're giving the job to. That is the reality sometimes as well. So don't discount the importance of networking in your organizations and outside of your organizations. So that being said, you see my screen. It says the Human Resource Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago. For all of y'all who study in HR, I urge you to get on board and join HERMAT. For those of you who are interested in learning about people management, because it's not only for HR practitioners, but you want to understand how to manage people more effectively, I said join HERMAT. HERMAT now is on a different trajectory. I know people have had positive and negative experiences with the organization. I can assure you that is a thing of the past. There's a lot of new activities, exciting initiatives coming on board. And I say to you, if you're interested, because we do have a mentorship program and all of that that we will commence in the near future, now is the time to get actively involved. Even as a student, we have a youth arm as well. We have associate membership, we have full membership, and we recently introduced a compassionate fee for those who may have lost their jobs, who may have retired and cannot afford now to pay the full membership fee. We have a compassionate fee as well. So that way you stay connected to the association and you get the value of being a member as well too. So get on the HERMAT train, right? Yeah, that's what I will say about networking.
Yeah, so thank you again. Thank you. And we know that the students definitely will take up the offer. And it was a pleasure having you present to us this evening.
But thank you everyone for having me. It was my pleasure. And I long for the day where I could see faces again, you know.
Yes.
But for now, this is how it's done, right? So
yes,
thank you.
Yes. Okay, have a wonderful evening, everybody. And students, join us in the next session. It will be just as valuable, and we're looking forward to have you with us again. Good evening, everybody.